Welcome, dear Aries, both the longtime companions of this channel and those who have just stumbled into Zodiac Talks Tarot for the first time. You've arrived at a moment that feels charged, almost like the air just before a thunderstorm, or the first spark when flint strikes steel. Aries, I know you're wired to jump straight into the fire, to leap before you look, but the universe is playing a little trick on you right now. It's slowing the clock. Before your reading, I sat in meditation and kept seeing a desert stretching endlessly, and at first I thought, great, emptiness. But then, there it was, a camel trudging forward with stubborn grace, a red gemstone gleaming in the sunlight, and an odd sense that time had thickened, as if the cosmos itself had pressed pause. The message? You're not running late, you're actually ahead of schedule. You've been feeling pressure, like life's breathing down your neck demanding decisions, but spirit leans in and says, relax. What you think is urgent is farther off than you realize. You have time. And let's be real, Aries doesn't usually like that answer. Patience isn't exactly your spiritual hobby. But here's the twist, time is not your enemy, it's your forge. Every day you hold steady, you're not waiting, you retempering. Like iron in fire, you're being reshaped, refined, made unbreakable. What looks like delay is actually preparation, what feels like distance is perspective. And when the right moment arrives, you'll step forward not just as the warrior who charges headlong, but as the sovereign who understands that rebirth doesn't come from rushing, it comes from knowing you were fire all along. Picture this, Aries, you're standing on the lip of a canyon, boots dusty, heart loud, sun in your eyes, and across the ravine you can just make out the outline of what you want. Maybe it's a rekindled calling, a braver relationship with yourself, or the kind of love that doesn't require a helmet and flame-proof suit. The distance looks unfair, but from where I sit after decades charting sky maps and human maps, the gap is not a punishment, it's a lens, a necessary stretch of air that turns overwhelm into understanding and impulse into intention. And if we borrow a page from old runic lore, the Dagaz rune, the one for daybreak, belongs to you now, not the electric shock of a lightning bolt, but the steady unfurling of dawn, the kind of light that starts as a whisper at the horizon and then, without asking permission, owns the whole sky. Epiphanies are arriving that way for you, not as drama but as clarity, and the more you resist the urge to sprint, the more you will notice that the canyon is quietly building a bridge out of patience, breath, and the dignified power of doing one wise thing at a time. Awareness, in my experience, often dresses up as distance because life knows we won't stop fiddling with the puzzle until somebody moves it to the other side of the room. And this September, the cosmos has practiced a compassionate kind of out of reach so you can finally see the picture instead of just the pieces, the chosen ones. And yes, I mean you, the ones who get knocked down and then dare to edit the fall into choreography, are always asked to hold their pose a beat longer than is comfortable, which is another way of saying the year of triumph 2025 is not late, it's on tempo, and the conductor has exquisite timing. In meditation I kept seeing a red gemstone, bright as a heartbeat and set in a ring, a small solar system of memory you've been orbiting since around December 2020, a month that, for some of you, split a story in two. And if that image belongs to you, consider the stone a teacher of heat and gravity, passion without panic, grounding without cement shoes. It's been your pocket talisman through storms, but even sacred objects need fresh light. Turn it in your palm and ask what promise it carries that you've outgrown, what vow you can keep more kindly now. And then, unmistakable, the camel, an old world emblem of endurance that looks like a joke until you're the one who needs water 30 miles from shade, reminding me that you have reserves you haven't even uncapped yet, that your stamina isn't the noisy kind but the kind that crosses a desert with a good attitude and a practical schedule, which, by the way, is the sexiest version of discipline. You've walked long stretches without applause, without proof you were right to trust yourself, sometimes without the warmth you deserved, and still you moved, because moving is what your spirit does when it refuses to be domesticated by fear. The desert, contrary to rumor, is not a punishment, but a revelation. Hot air burns off pretense, mirages teach discernment, and silence makes a monk out of the loudest heart. So when you feel the ache of space, remember you are being refined, not ignored. If your inner Aries snorts and says, "Fine, but can we get there faster?" I'll offer the humblest joke I know: speed is the slowest way to wisdom, while presence has been known to teleport people. So breathe, keep your rituals simple and your courage hydrated, and let the dawn keep doing what dawn does. Arriving, when it's truly time to cross, you won't need a dramatic leap, just one clean step, and you'll realize the canyon wasn't emptiness at all, but the classroom where you became someone who doesn't chase the sun anymore, someone who carries it. There are moments in life, Aries, when the universe doesn't send you a thunderclap of warning but instead whispers through a crack in the noise, something sounds off. It could be a stray comment that doesn't match the smile, an offer that feels a little too polished, or even a song lyric that jolts you in a way you can't explain. Don't shrug this off. Now, let's step into the heavier terrain, the shadow energy of another person circling around you. The Five of Swords has appeared not once, but twice, and that repetition matters. It carries with it the bitter scent of revenge. Someone in your orbit carries resentment like a badge of honor, convinced that you hold an advantage they cannot match. In their mind, the scales were tipped unfairly, and their ego is demanding retribution. But here's the twist: they are not a worthy opponent. They are swinging at shadows while you are walking in broad daylight. Their consciousness is fogged with confusion, while yours is clearing into morning air. Buddhism offers an insight worth remembering here: revenge is like drinking poison while waiting for the other person to die. Whoever this is, they are sipping their own venom daily, and though some of it may splash toward you, you are under no obligation to swallow it. In fact, the wisest response is often disengagement. Imagine, Aries, that they are plotting elaborate revenge as if it were a chess game, strategizing, maneuvering, congratulating themselves on clever moves while you have long since folded the board, packed your bag, and gone to the beach. They are shouting checkmate to an empty chair. That is the tragic comedy of ego attachment. They think they are winning, but they're really playing against themselves. And here's where your humor can be your shield. Laugh at the absurdity, not out of cruelty but out of recognition. Life has given you front row seats to a performance that no longer requires your participation. The keyword spirit handed down is pointless. Building a bridge to this person, as tempting as it may be for your fiery Aries heart that loves a good challenge, is not your assignment. Their ego is not your homework, and their healing is not your project. You are allowed to let them wrestle their own shadows while you tend to the sunrise of your own growth. After all, you are in the year of triumph 2025, where victory doesn't look like winning against others, it looks like choosing not to play games that were never worthy of your time in the first place. Aries, let's take a careful step into the psychology of what you're facing, because not every adversary is a cartoon villain twirling a mustache. Beneath the bravado, the bitterness, and the endless attempts to control the narrative, there lingers something softer, what the tarot often reveals as the King of Cups. It's a side of them they don't parade in public, a hidden capacity for compassion, tenderness, even love. But like a book they're ashamed to let anyone read, it stays locked on the highest shelf, buried under fear and insecurity. On the surface, they act indifferent, as if they've moved on. Yet any seasoned observer of human behavior, astrologer, psychologist, or just someone with a good sense of humor can tell you that indifference is often the loudest mask grief can wear. Behind their curtain is regret unprocessed, affection unspoken, and a longing they wish you'd decode so they wouldn't have to risk admitting it themselves. Here's the paradox: the more they fear vulnerability, the tighter their grip on control. And you, Aries, symbolize their ultimate rejection, the wound that keeps reopening. You refused to play their game, and that was your act of liberation, but to them, it was a nightmare scenario. They wanted to choreograph every step, and you had the audacity to dance off the stage. Psychologists would call this an ego wound, Buddhists would call it attachment dressed up as power. Either way, the important lesson is this: you are not their therapist, their healer, or their cosmic babysitter. Compassion does not equal reunion, forgiveness does not mean reconnection. Sometimes the truest compassion is simply wishing someone well while walking in the opposite direction, resisting the temptation to run back into a burning house just because you feel sorry for the wallpaper. Now, back to you, the part of this story that actually matters. Your spread is crowned by the Four of Wands, a card of joy, stability, and celebration. Whether it's the friends who truly show up for you, the community you've built, or the home inside yourself that finally feels safe, this is your season to acknowledge blessings. And standing next to it is the Emperor, your card. Not the rash knight charging into battle, not the restless page chasing a thrill, but the sovereign who has earned scars and turned them into wisdom. You're no longer fighting for validation, you've proven yourself in fire. This is why the chosen ones are tested more than others. Because once you've endured the trial, you don't just survive, you rule. The Year of Triumph 2025 isn't asking you to hustle harder, but to sit in authority, to recognize that your very presence is proof of victory. Let others stew in their Five of Swords, you've got empires to build. And here's the delightful twist: while one person is stuck in the past, new eyes are landing on your present. The King of Wands and the Page of Cups/Swords suggest admiration, attraction, even awe. Someone sees your freedom and your refusal to be caged, and it inspires them. For some, this energy will take the form of romance. For others, recognition in your field or newfound respect for your independence. You've become magnetic, not because you chased anyone's approval, but because you stopped needing it. Still, let me offer one gentle, humorous caution: don't scare them away with that trademark Aries intensity. Not everyone can handle being loved by fire. Sometimes a spark is more inviting than a wildfire, and a candle can light a room just as surely as a torch can lead an army. Your job now is not to dim your flame, but to learn when to let it flicker softly and when to let it blaze. In short, Aries, your story is shifting. Someone may wrestle with their shadows, but you're stepping into light, celebration, and authority. Your compassion is intact, but your boundaries are stronger. And that combination, heart plus crown, makes you unstoppable. Aries, let's face it, few cards in the tarot deck have such a reputation for dread as the Ten of Swords. People see it and wince, as though it signals ruin or betrayal. But for you, this card is less a funeral and more a graduation ceremony. The swords may look heavy, but they are not weapons anymore, they are diplomas, proof that you survived lessons no one else could have carried. The painful ending you're processing is not a punishment, it's liberation. It's the universe saying, congratulations, class dismissed. Still, the human mind has its games. You may wonder, should I hear this person out one last time? Should I build a bridge and see if the past can be tidied up? Spirit's answer is unequivocal, no. To engage again is to reopen wounds that were already healing. The Ten of Swords doesn't whisper maybe, it declares, the story is finished. Let it rest. The opportunity is not in reconciliation but in cementing your freedom, in honoring that you no longer owe anyone access to your heart just because they regret losing it. The challenge here is embodied by the Hanged Man, that lingering temptation to look back, to doubt whether the ending really was final. But the Hanged Man teaches that wisdom comes not from clinging, but from surrender. We don't gain clarity by negotiating with shadows, we gain it by stepping into the light. And your advice? The card of the Sun: growth, joy, music, laughter. After years of trudging through deserts of doubt, Spirit is practically dragging you to the dance floor. Bask in warmth, sing badly in the shower, clap offbeat if you must, but let joy have its turn at the wheel. You've earned it. And what of the future? In the weeks ahead 5, maybe 6, aligned with the eclipse cycles you may feel movement. The Knight of Swords could storm in, carrying the voice of that old energy, sharp with criticism or impulsive action. They may try to provoke you, to lure you into another round of drama. But beside the Knight stands the Hierophant, the wise teacher who asks you to pass the test of spiritual maturity. The question is simple, though not always easy: will you mirror their chaos, or will you hold your composure? Will you bite back, or will you rise above, calm as the emperor who doesn't need to prove himself by sparring with every heckler? Let me be plain, Aries, Spirit's guidance is clear. Do not let them discombobulate you. Tune out the noise. Tune into wisdom. Your path is upward, and no one has the right to drag you down unless you hand them the rope. Remember, some people throw stones at the sun not because it's wrong, but because it shines. This September reading is not really about one person, or even one conflict. It's about the larger arc of your life, the truth that your rebirth is, inevitably, someone else's regret. And that's perfectly fine. Triumph is not measured by applause or by the bitterness of those who miss you. It is measured by your peace, your joy, your awareness. It's measured by the light you choose to live in, not the shadows you left behind. So keep your eyes on the dawn, your feet steady in the desert, and your crown firmly on your head. The chosen ones are always asked to walk through fire before they shine. And you, my fiery friend, are entering the year of triumph 2025 not as a soldier locked in battle, but as a sovereign walking freely. The time has come to celebrate your rebirth, to let regret belong to those who cling to the past, and to move forward knowing your future is already blazing. So here's my closing encouragement: enjoy your life, Aries. Laugh more than you argue. Dance more than you explain yourself. Love without apology, and remember that not every invitation to conflict deserves your RSVP. Your journey ahead is luminous, claim it fully. And before you go, if this message resonated with you, don't forget to like this video, share it with your fellow fire signs or anyone who needs a spark of truth, and subscribe to Zodiac Talks Tarot. This channel is here to walk with you through the stars, the psyche, and the stories of your soul. Until next time, Aries, wear your crown, keep your fire, and let the sun lead the way.